I'd now like to introduce our third songwriter and project artist, Isobella Kruger.
Hello, Jingri.
Hi, Isobella. Look, thank you so much for joining us also. I believe you're currently on country at Stradbroke Island with your grandparents. What's it like over there today?
It is a very beautiful day, a kupul day, which means beautiful in Yugambeh language. So I've just been down to the beach this morning. And yes, I love being on country. It warms my heart, really. So yeah, I've really enjoyed being here during my break. And really, I'd like to say thank you as well for getting to work with AMEB. That's really amazing for me. Growing up with AMEB is an institution which is ingrained in, the Australian curriculum. So it's a really special opportunity to get to work with you guys.
The pleasure is all ours, believe me. We know that you contributed to writing the melody for Morning Star and Evening Star, but you're also responsible for creating the amazing artwork that will be featured throughout the project. Can you tell us a little bit about the artwork as it came together?
Yeah, sure. So I sort of came at this from a perspective where I felt that I needed to incorporate this amazing dreaming story that I've grown up with and dreaming stories of the stars, as well as sort of the astronomical knowledges of stars and the stars that we're using in this story. So I sort of started off thinking, well, I have to tell a story through this medium of two stars communicating. And so my first thought was, wow, okay, big task. So I just decided to research about these stars, these two stars, Sirius and Canopus. That was my go-to. I like to research and know what I'm doing. So I sort of started out there, and Mum showed me the dreaming stories behind these two stars. So the Crow star, which is Canopus, which we are talking about, is the evening star, and Sirius, which is the Eagle Hawk star. So I sort of researched those stars to sort of get an idea first of how I would show stars communicating. And I came across Sirius being also known as the rainbow star, because the way it scintillates and twinkles, it has this rainbow sort of appearance in the night sky, and it brings out so much color. So for me, I thought immediately I need to look at the color bases that I'm using. And so I thought about sunset and sunrise. And of course, on the Gold Coast, we have very beautiful sunsets and sunrises. So it took me a couple of days to sort of get a palette that I was working with here. And as you can see, the smaller star in the background is the evening star, and the larger one is the morning star. So they represent a sunset and a sunrise. So for me, that was where I started. I started with the color base, and then I sort of thought, well, how do I show a star? We don't really see a star up close. It's a gas ball as such. So how do I show that in something that is meaningful to the story? So I sort of read through Mum's poem and had a look at the motifs that ran through the poem. And there's a lot of discussion around different birds that we use in the poem. So of course the dreaming star, the dreaming stories behind the two stars involve a crow and an eagle. And then of course we talk about Kruger as well. So from there, I kind of thought about the wingspan of these birds flying. And as you saw in the video, there was a beautiful video of the Kruger taking off and flying, the kookaburra, and you saw its big wingspan. So I thought, I'd like to use that motif in my art to show what the stars would look like from their dreaming stories originally. So as you can see, the long sort of thin lines are the wingspans of the birds that were used in this story, which I thought was really nice. And in the original artwork as well, and in some of the other logos, you can see it. There's big sort of circles around the two stars, and that was, for me, that was about the scintillation and the reach of the stars, and how far out these stars have to reach in order to communicate with each other, because in the story they're talking to each other. So that was about the reach of the stars, and they sort of got paired back into they were originally lines, because in a lot of Indigenous artwork we see lines used as language. So we see song lines, for example, as a straight line. And so for me, that was about they're communicating, they're talking to each other. So I thought I'd use lines. And that initially was lines, and it got paired back a little bit too, as we can see the little sparks flying off the the stars, which sort of almost come from the Uguary, the pipi, which is a source of food, and we collect them every time we come to North Stradbroke Island. So they sort of got pared down to that, which I quite like. And then, so I worked with Paula from there after I did my artwork, and we looked at how we could turn it into a logo, and we combined the two stars in the logo.
Paula Miho, who's the graphic designer who has taken your design and built it into the various different logos and banners and all of the artwork that you'll see throughout the project online and also on the printable parts. And she's done a wonderful job as well. You supplied the image to Paula. How did you create it in the first place? Did you use a computer, or how did that all happen?
Well, I did a painting to start with, and then I sort of went to Paula after that, and we discussed what elements of the painting were my story and what I wanted to come out in graphic art. And from there, she sort of took that and did some amazing things with it on Adobe Illustrator. And then from there, we kind of went back and forth for, I'd say about a month and a half of, I do like this, I don't like that. And we came to this conclusion of this artwork that you see that was, a meshing of our ideas and coming from that original dreaming story. So, yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for the work that you've done on that image, and such a multi-layered, complex and interesting story behind it. There's just so far to go in terms of understanding what you've created and how it relates to the song. So thank you and congratulations.
In this bush on the land, over sea, under sky, two stars linger in this song.